today to speak about this. So if you imagine yourselves arriving to a space like this, what do you feel? What do you feel?
Like it needs some artwork.
It's very bland.
Very bland.
Yeah.
Okay, let me write this down. Oh, I don't have a pen. I'll remember.
Here.
Very bland. Oh, thank you. So we say, we feel it's bland, lacking some art. What else?
It's cold. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Some more colors.
Not very inviting.
Vale. Think about how do you feel when you enter a space like that?
Nervous.
Yeah,
I feel very
nervous.
intrigued.
Okay. Anxious. Something else?
Nothing.
Okay. Feeling. Okay. Great.
Definitely bored.
Feels
Bored.
like hospital.
Yeah, you're gonna
Yeah,
spend
or like a
some time
doctor's waiting
here.
room or
Be
something.
bored.
Okay. Thank you so much.
But it's a picture that we see a lot.
Right.
Right?
A lot of.
Yeah, it's all around environments like this. So if we think about the qualities of the elements in this image, is there any element that is pleasant?
The plant.
The tree.
The
Yeah.
Plant,
Yeah.
okay.
I like the floor.
Okay, perhaps the floor. What else?
It's all,
Natural light.
The natural light,
Yeah.
right?
well, I was gonna say it's all monochromatic, which is kind of interesting.
Okay, the colors.
Yeah, the
what else?
colors.
Right? Something else?
It lacks a sense of space.
Hmm.
Just everything's just like
Okay.
shoved away. I mean, sofas in front of radiators.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's like,
like
things,
waiting room
and
setting.
things are kind
Right.
of like, yeah, even though it's waiting room setting, it's not telling you to come and lounge here while you
No.
wait for your reception point. Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah, so we can have this impact that's not as pleasant as we would like to, even if there are some elements that we could traditionally say they are pleasant. Plants, natural lights, okay. I was also going to ask, what is, in your opinion, this space lacking to be excellent?
Interaction, probably.
Okay, interaction,
Space planning.
space planning.
Yeah. Some artwork. Yeah.
Color,
Thank you. These
delicate.
are very
Yeah, some
designer
color,
type answers.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
also, if this is a waiting room, is it a waiting room?
It is a waiting room.
Okay, then, there's nothing there to keep you busy.
Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
If I'm going to be waiting, I mean, you might be waiting for many reasons. Sometimes waiting is anxious. So,
Like
you know,
magazines.
magazines or something to entertain, maybe a TV, I don't know.
Wow. I really appreciate all this energy. Designer minds are
Yeah.
thinking about how much potential a place like that can have and any space can have, right? So I'm not here today to speak about recipes because as we can see, recipes don't work. We can know what are the pleasant elements like natural light, plants, colors, comfy chairs, but nevertheless the impact that we get of this place is still unpleasant. So what I'm here today to speak about is about how human psychology creates empathy with a space or a lack of it, and how we can design for that. So that is why I renamed this presentation Space and Empathy. Okay. I've been already talking a bit about myself. I wanted to add something. I started to study architecture in 2012 because I wanted to make places where people would be happy. Right? I lost my father when I was very young, and ever since I wanted to create places where nobody would ever need to feel depressed. Right? So with time, I'm finding ways to be working with people that have suffered the trauma of a loss, and they're trying to find a way to come back home to themselves. So after graduating in architecture, I took a certificate in health and harmony of the human environment, which studies how spaces impact our health and our bodies biologically. And then I went on with the studies on the mind, and I'm doing this Master of Research at Berkeley in this intersection between psychology and architecture, and hoping to apply this research to the resilience of communities that have experienced natural disaster. All right. So what I mostly study or learn about, it's what happens in the brain between stimulus and response. And actually I've learned that it's much more complex than just stimulus and response. There's a whole lot going in, and I'm going to break down this process and explain you all the neuroscience behind what happens in the brain. So an architecture stimulus could be anything from the space, the form, the light, the colors, the furniture, the layout, the people in it, the things that I can do in that space. But what is, from your opinion, different responses we can have to architecture?
You can either like it or you can like not like it. Or
Okay,
it can make you feel
judgments,
comfortable. Or,
appreciation, feelings, right? Thank you. What else? How is architecture impacting our lives?
mean,
Lifestyle.
Yeah.
Lifestyle, yes.
Just even your everyday mood. You walk into a room, makes you feel a very specific way, and it kind of defines your experience.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. That's one of the first ones that I noticed. Like, how come I feel different when I walk into a room? Thank you. Something else? How we get impacted by architecture. So here I did a list with some of the characteristics that you guys were saying, right? We have emotion, how we're gonna feel in a space, behavior, what things we can do in a space. Can we interact with people? Can we not? Resilience. Resilience is just a word to explain how you regulate yourself. And when have you ever had a good rest in a beautiful room? Right? This is impacting your health, but also resilience. Because when you know there are safe places where you can go back to feel calm down and comfortable, this is affecting your ability to regulate yourself and to pull yourself back together. So resilience, very important. Mood, as we were saying, even culture, which is lifestyle, and then how we think about buildings, how we think about our culture, right? So as we can see, something that happens in the brain has an effect entirely in many human dimensions and really can improve someone's lives. So if I'm able to, and to make you understand today what's going on in the brain, you will be able to make predictions for yourself and for others about how this space is going to impact your life. If I'm able to explain you today what happens between stimulus and response, you really will be some of the few designers in the world with an informed understanding with science about this process, about how we create empathy with space, and really have much more agency to influence and improve someone's lives. For example, my friend, Ana. So this is a case study I'm going to present now, and we're going to get back to at the end of the talk. So Ana is a dear friend of mine. She is, as me, very interested in neuroscience and architecture. Perhaps she's even more freak than me in this, which is already a lot. And she's now living in Spain, but she was overseas in New York for 8 years studying the same topic. And in this example, Ana is going back home. She's been 8 years living in New York, and she went back to Spain because her visa expired. So she's 28 years old. Coming back home, she does not have a place to live or a way to sustain herself, and she needs to live with the siblings. So she's gonna live in the living room, the same apartment where 2 people are living already, people that have partners, that have a life, and she needs to live in, there's a little axonometric like this is the living room. So first she's like sleeping on the couch, not really having a space for herself, really invading and like limiting how much people can use the living room. So she hires a designer, it could be any of us one day, and she needs a solution for this space, right? So we can see what we design is going to impact so much her life. And if we go back, it's going to impact her emotions, how she feels about a place to be, her behavior, what she can do, what others can do in that room, her interactions with the siblings, sense of belonging or good or bad relationships, her sense of resilience, as we were saying, some place to go back to have a relaxing spot to pull together, no? Health, it's going to impact how well she can sleep, for example. And this is so fundamental in our health. Her mood, absolutely, how she's going to feel generally in her life. Is she happy about her life and her place or not? And again, lifestyle, culture. So there's a lot of stake for her and for us as designers, an opportunity to provide a lot for someone. Okay. So Ana was also one of the first people to explain me and tell me about this place. Do you recognize it?
Mm-hmm.
What is it?
Come on, guys. Learn about it last.
I know. I'm looking at it.
It's like this
So many names are
science
thrown at
college.
Right?
I
Science.
know
San
it's
Diego.
named like
Right.
Yeah, Louis Kahn.
Very good.
yeah.
Right. It's the Salk Institute.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful, beautiful space. And it's the home of the Academy of Neuroscience for Architecture. So I didn't tell you this word before because I was waiting for this moment. The Salk Institute, which was created by Jonas Salk, the inventor of the polio, a very important vaccine, is also the home of the only academy in the world that's trying to bind together these two concepts and talk about it and publish about it. Because Jonas Salk said that he had the idea of the polio vaccine when he was staying in a monastery in Italy. And he thought that this monastery has really sparked his cognition and allowed him to have great creativity. So he was the first one to say, hey, we need a committee of architects and neuroscientists. Think about this. So in 2003, the Neuroscience for Architecture Academy was created. And there's many people working there and publishing. One of them is Malgrave, Francis Malgrave. He has some of the books that I read the most and I love the most. And he has this sentence that I'm going to read. It says, we intuitively evaluate the constructed environment in the same way that we might be attracted to the pleasant smell of a rose or are put off by a full odor. So he's saying what you guys were telling me about. We have a reaction intuitively to space. We are designers. We know this more than anyone. But can we make this intuition into real science? Can we really understand why? Today I'm going to explain you this so that by the end of this talk, hopefully you're not only going to the world having intuitions about, I like this or not, but really informed understanding.